The Akamba community of Kenya occupies the southeastern plains in Eastern Province, as well as pockets of Coast Province. They are historically renowned as versatile hunters, honey-gatherers, and long-distance butter traders. Over the years, the Akamba have maintained a consistent practice of their traditional dances, which they perform with a lot of gusto. They have a wide repertoire of dances, characterized by fast, precise steps, heavy drumming, whistle blowing, and very vibrant body shakes. These performances are punctuated by thematic actions like harvesting, shooting arrows, or fending off unwanted spirits, which are demonstrated with vitality. Indeed, these dances reflect the skills, energy, and endurance required for their survival. The performance of Kilume, Cha, Ideke, Mbovoi, Ngunguru, Kilui, or Kiore, amongst many others, therefore carries in it a demonstration of a certain aspect of their livelihood and aspirations. These dances have been handed down through generations and are believed to have undergone many changes. But today's performers will insist that what they present is the authentic version. Unlike other parts of Kenya, Kambaland is dotted with many traditional dance troupes that are dominated by fairly aged performers, many of whom have done this since their youthful days. Mbeni dance is one of the oldest dances in the Akamba community. However, many views have been given on the origin of this dance, with many saying it was developed from an earlier dance known as Mbalia. Some believe this is Mukanda dance, but later modifications in dance steps made it be called Mbeni. In fact, the very old folk call this dance Mukanda, while in other areas of the diverse Kambaland, it is known as Ileve. In the traditional setting, it was performed by unmarried men and women as a form of entertainment during happy occasions, especially after bumper harvests. These young people who had undergone other important community passage rites therefore congregated for such events that took place in the afternoons to early evenings to interact as they enjoyed the dance.
It was mainly for boys and girls, people who have already undergone the first and the second initiation ceremony, which were very important among the Akamba. For any grown-up, for somebody to be considered a grown-up, you had to undergo those circumcisions. So those people who have already gone through the circumcisions are the people who actually went for this dance. And it was actually performed in the evenings after the day's work. After people have completed their daily work, they are ready to go to sleep. Instead of going to sleep, they would go to the dances to perform the dances. So it was a way of recreation for them.
The dance, renowned for its energetic body shakes, climaxed by acrobatic movements and the shouting orders by the leader, was referred to as Ngumi. Mbeni dance is performed in 3 sections or patterns, with the latter 2 interspersing each other repeatedly. The first section, which is the entry to the dancing arena, is known as Mwendo. They move slowly in tandem with the slow rhythm of the drums. they settle on the arena, the dancers warm themselves up in preparation for the oncoming instructions by the ngumi. This relaxation section is referred to as kisango and recurs several times later in this dance. After the relaxation, they embark on the major section of this dance, known mostly as iseso or kisomo in a few parts of Cumberland. It begins with the ngumi giving instructions to the dancers on what is expected of them. In some places, it is a short session of question and answer before they begin vigorous dancing. Elsewhere, it is normally the leader telling what kind of movement he or she expects from the dancers. The dancing starts simultaneously with the drum beat, which this time is faster and louder. The leader continues with his instructions in the midst of heavy drumming, but in some instances, he lets the drums do the talking, controlling the pace and changes in body movements. The ferocity in the leader's commands is a call to the dancers to put in more effort. The women, most of them loudly blowing whistles, generally shake their shoulders a lot with well-choreographed short and precise foot patterns. The men will shake their heads, jump high, turning in mid-air to land facing their partners. In response to the witty calls of the ngumi, the dancers imitate the movement of animals or play common activities, for example, weeding or breastfeeding. The acrobatic effects performed include the men carrying the women in places and positions of the body that allows them to jig to the drum beat. There are also somersaults, headstands, carrying of more than one person and many more others, which really expend quite some energy.
The acrobatic movements were very necessary, especially for the kind of activities that the Akambas were involved in. You will find that the Akambas were long-distance travelers. They needed to be physically fit. So those movements would make them physically fit. They were also involved in economic activities that needed that masculine, that is strength, that is stamina. Like, for example, they used to keep honey, and they would need to climb very tall trees, and they needed to be very strong. They were also hunters. They used to go hunting to kill animals. They needed to move, and they needed strength to walk long distances. So they were actually, those movements were very essential for their daily life. Even cultivation, they needed that strength to cultivate. So that the music was very important for those particular activities.
It is said that these movements were more vigorous in the past, when most of today's performers were younger.
Wakati huo ilikuwa ikichezwa kwa kuruka, sio kama wa leo wa kuvimbilika vile wanavimbilika. Kwa vile naweza kukanyanga chini namna hiyo, naweza kuvimbilika namna hiyo, na naweza kukimbia hivi, naruka namna hiyo mpaka nakuja kukanyanga chini. Na hiyo ilikuwa vile natembea, ngoma hiyo yenyewe ilikuwa inaunguruma. Sio kwa ninakuwa ninakimbia hivi peke yangu. Ngoma yenyewe ilikuwa inaimba namna hiyo. Vile ninakimbia ngoma inaunguruma.
Iseso or kisomo lasts for about 2 minutes, then ends with a sudden perfect cadence synchronized with the beat of the drum referred to as kukadola. The dancers then retreat to kisango to relax and await further commands from the ngumi. The playing of the drums also relaxes in terms of tempo, pace and intensity, while the whistles too are removed from the mouths. Relaxation takes another 2 minutes before they embark again as instructed by the ngumi on the second iseso or kisomo, in which a different acrobatic effect and dance style is introduced. Iseso and kisango intersperse each other several times depending on the strength of the dancers before they finally do a mwendo to exit the stage. Sometimes, however, the dance ends on a high note at the end of a climaxing iseso. There exists a school of thought that Mbeni is a relatively modern dance introduced by African soldiers who had been conscripted in colonial armies during the Second World War. This fact is always enhanced by the following dance characteristics. The military-like marching and saluting ever present in sections of this dance. The use of dummy guns as hand props. The demonstration of shooting using the dummy guns. The use of the ngumi as lead drummers to control movement, just as the drum major in the army.
Up! Get him up!
The issuing of commands before and during the dance by the leader. The use of some broken English words as part of the commands by some leaders.
Get here! Get here! Get here! Get here! Get here!
An emerging fact, however, is that indeed Mbeni has been there for as long as Akamba community itself has existed. The military returnees, only spiced up with ingredients, learned during their tour of duty for the white masters.
The people who came from the Second World War actually added a lot of things which they learned from outside there. And that's why you'll find some dances will have even things to do with guns, things to do like marching, because of that influence of the Second World War.
Mbeni was a dance for the youth to entertain themselves on happy occasions after bumper harvests. It would be done away from the homesteads in selected fields known as Kinyaka in Kitui, Kivaro or Kivata in Mwingi, or Kituto in Machakos. One of the main functions of this dance was competition. There were festivals where competitive Mbeni, known as Mulonganio, would be performed by different groups in one big venue. These groups would execute many antics, including use of charms to attract sizable crowds, since those with more audience were declared the winners. Other groups would send spies to rivals' performances to learn their skills, which they would later adapt and improve on. Many are times when competition was so severe that some groups would turn to underhand and natural methods to ensure a win. A charm obtained from a selected tree bark known as kaleve would be planted by one team on competitors' routes to the dancing fields. When the opponents arrived at the fields, the kaleve power would send the ladies into near hysterical state, only laughing or crying till the end of the competition. This method was quite popular and acceptable. Several of the groups, however, had busters who would detect and remove these charms before their colleagues were affected. Mbeni also gave opportunity for the youth to identify their future spouses. Many families are believed to have originated from interactions at these performances. This is corroborated by evidence that during dance breaks, known as mulenga, the young men and women were paired and given some time to interact and know each other.
Wewe umemaliza nzaiko zote tatu na hujaoa, basi hutatoka katika ngoma, sababu zamani tulikuwa tunatolewa katika ngoma, mtu anatolewa na mtoto wake. hapo hapo, maana yeye kushamaliza zaiko 3 na wewe msichana kushamaliza zaiko 3, anapika wamuli wa kuolewa, na mume na anafika wamuli wa kuoana, na watakutana pale na watapendana na wataoana kutoka kinyekani na watakwenda nyumbani.
They were, however, monitored to ensure no conflicts occurred during this time, especially that of sharing partners. This supervisory role was given to a relatively newly married man called Ndele, who arbitrated in any problem that may occur.
Whether wana mvele alana mama na atwa niwa meruki na namba kuthia ma vigara ro kanana mondo athia aboganga mondo no alika kwa thika ite yaku no akoma ina wili kana na dumea.
The leading instrument used in Mbeni is the mukanda drum, made of kivuti or kikau tree trunk, which is hollowed using a special axe called thea. It is then smoothened and the 2 ends covered with animal skins. On one side, a goat skin is used, while the other side is covered with skin made from a monitor lizard, known in Akamba as nzana. The skins are stretched and held by wooden pegs around the smoothened trunk. Before any performance, the skin surfaces have to be heated to attain the desired pitch. The drums are hung around the waist, ensuring that the goat skin is on the left, with the lizard skin side on the right-hand side. The left side is one which regulates the pitch and tone of the dance and is played using fingers. Master drummers are said to know how to make the drums speak in Akamba. The right-hand side with monitor lizard skin is hit harder to produce the accompanying rhythm. In many instances, the ngumi is one of the drummers, although in other places, he or she may be independent. The other supporting instruments are the metallic whistles blown by the women dancers. Originally, these whistles were made out of plant reeds. A few of the dancers wore jingles known as lamba on the legs. Earlier performances of Mbeni had women dressing in black garments referred to as kanyiki. They too decorated themselves with wayoa, which are beads on their hands, neck and waist. They also put on cockerel feathers called zambuya or ivuti at the shoulders. The men had black shirts with 2 bands of cloth crossing each other at the chest and back. They too used to put on ostrich feathers known as zombwi on their heads. This was meant to exaggerate the head movement. All this attire was well fitting to cope with the very vigorous styles of dance. Mbeni dance has undergone a full transformation, losing most of its original functions, components and aesthetics. Unlike before, today's performers are married and advanced in age. Although most of them performed this dance from the headings, their current show is a pale representation of the real thing.
Ni sasa hatuishi. Ilikuwa waume wanaketi hapa, wanawake wanaketi hapa, lakini sasa iko wanawake. Sisi waume ni kupika ngoma, wanawake wanacheza. Maini mabadiliko moja kubwa.
They now wear tailored clothes as costumes, have very weak movements due to their age, and perform this dance mainly for praising leaders in society. Modern religion, education and urban life have jointly eliminated the youth from the performance of this dance. If the current trend is not reversed urgently to replace the present performing generation, this dance may suffer a fatal blow in the near future.
People should do research, collect information, record this music, and put it somewhere where people would see it in the future. The second recommendation is that we should find a way of teaching the youth if the music could be introduced in schools so that the young people can learn and make sure that it continues to be performed. Those would be my two very important recommendations. If they are important, I don't know.
However, having several veteran performers to impart their expertise to schools, as happens in Tala Boys High School, is a commendable effort. These lads should be encouraged to continue performing as groups even after they finish their schooling.